For those of you that were not here, and those of you that were here, to please do not carry anything you don't want for your 2019. This is your year of first getting you together. We are so busy trying to get everything else together that sometimes we forget about our own selves. As Christians, we must learn to put away and cast off every and all burdens, hindrances, offenses that does so easily beset us. Now, I'm going to teach because I've been preaching all week. So the word beset means that means to be standing around. If we are standing, then we're not running, and this is a race. God does not want you just sitting there procrastinating, looking for stuff to happen when God wants you to make it happen. Right. Not just for yourself, but to bless somebody else. I'm going somewhere. You can't win a race by standing. You must be in motion. The witnesses before us can testify that if you keep running, you can finish. It was so interesting that our teacher talked about this morning about finishing the things that God has asked us to start it. That's why I'm so grateful and glad to know that God did not just start something that he cannot finish, even in your life. However, we can put aside everything that has the potential to stop us from running and have us standing still in this race. God wants us all, first of all, to be woven together in faith to become what I call spiritual champions. In becoming spiritual champions, God wants us to win. As a matter of fact, a spiritual champion is one sold out to Jesus. The finish line of faith is a life that is more Christian, more committed, more sanctified, more dedicated. I don't want to be mediocre in my 2019. Have I got any witnesses in here? If I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it with all my heart or not do it at all. Let me share something with you, by the way, that you are further along toward your goal today than you were yesterday. And the question is not about longevity. The question is, how much have you become like Jesus? I'm going somewhere. Hang with me. I know I'm getting kind of deep. The question is not how long you live, but how much has my character changed? Somebody say change. It matters little how long you've been on the track. It matters greatly, however, how far you have progressed from the starting line. If you aren't making progress, then you've got to ask this question, and I hope that you're writing it down. What is holding you back? What is tripping you up in your spiritual journey? What is slowing your progress towards being more like Christ? In other words, in the race set before you, what would God say to you if you are not moving along on this race? Is there anybody besides me God is speaking to? Is there anybody in here that's questioning where you stand right now with God? Is there anybody in here before they talked about getting a new car, or getting married, or getting that new house or whatever, that when you prayed to God and say, God, make me new? Make me over so I'm prepared for all the new things that are coming my way? If you aren't making progress, what's holding you back? Here's the thing, though, and I'm going to move. The main theme of Hebrews is the absolute supremacy and sufficiency of Jesus Christ as our high priest and revealer of God. This book of Hebrews starts off by saying that Jesus is the final revelation of God, which was spoken about in the Old Testament. Hebrews then goes through and shows how Jesus fulfilled the requirements to be our high priest, and that he has the ability to save us once and for all. As one scholar wrote, Jesus is everything that God wanted to say to us. Now, that's amazing, because when I think about Jesus, he's everything that God brought to us, for us, and that's going to help us along this way. The Old Testament said, stay away from the new covenant of the blood. But the New Testament said, you got to draw to the blood. Hebrews emphasizes the completeness and fullness of his sacrifice, that we cannot add to it, but we just embrace it. Some people want to try to add to their salvation, but all you got to do is receive it and receive the cross. To go away from the completed work of Christ, and I'm talking about Jesus for a moment, to go away from the completed work of Christ is to sink into nothingness, because outside of Christ there is nothing but death. How many know that it's only Jesus that has given us life? We can't add anything to us. As a matter of fact, Jesus said in John chapter 15, and I'll be there sometime this month, that unless you cannot do anything without him, because everything is made in him. The other key to this book, and I'm coming, faith is the key practice. Faith in action is what pleases the Lord. He speaks and people move. He speaks and people operate. He anoints and people he gives gifts. He blesses and people live in abundance. He sends a word and people are lifted up. I don't know who I'm talking to. He moves and your whole life is changed. One prayer and he can move a whole situation. One prayer and one thought of God and he can heal your body. One thought of God and he can change all of your circumstance. And this is the determination we must have, that I'm not doing everything on my own in 2019. But whatever I'm going to do, I believe that God is going to give me the ability, watch this, not to do something I've already done, but to do something that is supernatural, something that is brand new. I am about to blow up in here. Y'all are going to help me in here. Anybody touch yourself and say, I'm about to blow up? Not because you said it, but because God is already in you. God is about to move somebody. Somebody say shift. Shift you from one level to your next level, because God is not going to let you sit there the same way you did last year. It's time for you to rise up and walk into your destiny and walk into your new, because God is still supreme over everything. I thank God I got two witnesses back behind me that believe that elevation is coming your way. So let me go ahead and talk to you. Go ahead and walk in the elevation. Go ahead and move into what God has for you. Go ahead and walk into your destiny. Let them talk about you. Let them chastise you. Let them try to block you. Let them try to say that you ain't this. And let them try to tell you you ain't that. Let them try to tell you you can't have this. Baby, I can have what God has for me. I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. So Hebrews, the Bible says, wherefore, therefore, that we also have such a great cloud of witnesses. And whenever you see wherefore, you got to back up to the 11th chapter. I'm coming, I'm not going to be too long. The 11th chapter is the great hall of fame of faith. The champions of Hebrews 11 had run their race victoriously, and now they're still here present in the Word of God to encourage us to become spiritual champions too. The men and women of faith, listen to 11, watch this, they were not perfect people. You had people like Noah who was a drunk. You had people like Abraham who was a liar. You had Samson who had a lust problem. You had Rahab who was a prostitute. You had Moses that had a temper problem. You had Gideon who was a scaredy cat. You had David who was an adulterer and a murderer. Not only were these people not perfect, they were even close to perfect. But let me tell you something, God does not always use perfect people. But here's what they did. They didn't stay in their imperfection. Somebody say progress. They progressed toward the finish line of Christ likeness. That's why we shouldn't judge folks so hard when God has always used people who, watch this, were not perfect. I am not here to condemn what you're doing. I am not here just to talk about your mess. Because truth be told, everybody got some mess in their lives. Everybody in here has done something wrong and somebody has made a mistake. But aren't you glad that God, you look over your mess and saw you as a miracle that you can become? That's what God wants you to walk into in 2019. These champions of yesterday testify to us. Noah is telling us that every drunk you can stop. Abraham reminds us that every lie you tell, you can tell the truth. Samson acknowledges that God's power can enable you to win over your lust. Rahab informs us that even though she was a woman of promiscuity, God can still use a woman that's been talked about and still raise her up to bless God's people.
Come on now.
Maybe I ain't got no folks in here
Come on now.
ask God for forgiveness. Maybe I ain't got no folks in here that have asked God to move in their lives. Maybe I don't have enough people in here who know they've been down. Maybe I don't have enough people who know for a shadow of a doubt that they could have been lost. Maybe I don't have people in here that want to be real with themselves. I came today to be real with you. I came to let you know that these robes don't mean a thing. I came to tell you that there's been stuff in my life, but God still chose me anyway. I came to tell you that God did something in my life that still makes me want to bow down and say, Lord, I'm sorry. Lord, I confess my sins because Because if it had not been for the blood of Jesus, I would not be up here today. So the first thing that God wants you to do is change. And I know this ain't going to be a happy moment because some people just don't want to change.
Come on
because
now.
if we are not careful, there are some weights that you're still holding on to. Some weights that are still holding you down. Please note that this is not a resolution. I don't make New Year's resolution when I got the solution.
Come on now.
I already got God. So I don't have to make anything else but, and I said it earlier, all I want to be is in God's will. All I want to be is in God's way. He's going to help me to lose weight. He's going to help me to be rich. He's going to help me to move to a new level. Anybody here, God has already said He's going to help you? No, I ain't got nobody in here. Look at your neighbor and say, God said He's going to help you. Yeah, and the first weight is the weight of outright sin. Sometimes that's the weight. It's just sin. Things that we know we are doing wrong, but we have simply been unwilling to let go of them. You need to stop tripping up and tell it, I'm leaving it behind. Second weight is the weight of the setting sin. Those are habits that you think that you cannot break. I came in here this morning to tell you that with that anointed oil that you have already put on your head, God's going to break some habits in your life. Memories of past mistakes, God's breaking it. Doubts and afflictions, God is breaking it. Things you thought you couldn't leave behind, God's going to break it. And watch this, whenever God breaks something, He knows how to put something together. Is there anybody in here God has put something together for? And you realize that what God has for you is for you. You recognize that whatever broke, God broke it for a reason. Whatever God took away, He took it away for a reason. And now this is my season coming.
Harvest. Hallelujah.
Y'all can be seated. I'm almost done. There's another weight that has to be broken. That's the weight of distractions. Sin is not the only thing that keeps us from being spiritual champions. Sometimes those weights are not necessarily sinful, but they are distractions. The author of Hebrews also speaks of laying aside every weight that so easily ensnares us or trips us up. In this race, you got to be light. I can't keep carrying on the things I did last year. I've got to strip off some stuff that I've been stuck in too long. I don't know who's going to go with me, but I told God, if you get me in this church this morning, I am going to strip some stuff off and let it go so that your full anointing will come over my life. So God, you can be the author and finisher, not Andre. Anybody know that you got to get out the way so God can have His way? Yes, Jesus. Yes. Is your weight addiction? Is your weight a drug or is it alcoholism? Is your weight or is your weight habits? Is your weight talking about people? Is your weight hating on people? See, I got to talk about these sins before we can get rolling together. We got to find where the saints are so that they can come together. Is your weight just being stuck up? Have I got a witness in here? Is your weight being a deceiver? You know you ain't right with God. Is your weight lying to people so that you can be closer to some of the folks? These are the things that you have to break. Is your weight promiscuity? Maybe you're trying to hook up with everybody and nobody's really hooking up with you because you got the wrong hookup. Just got quiet right there. Listen, let me tell you, people of God, is your weight anger? Maybe you're just a person that's always angry. Every time I see you, you always got a smirk on your face. Maybe your weight is just being so deep you can't even smile. You so sanctified you can't even crack a smile on your face. Is your weight is that you so hateful of other people that you don't even know the essence of love? Is your weight fear? Maybe you're still holding back. For some of y'all, it is. You should have moved into your anointing last year. Because you were so scared who I'm preaching to.
Come
you were
on.
so scared to open up your mouth, and you were so scared of what the people might say about you. You didn't take that first step to go into what God has for you. But I'm coming to tell you today it's got to break. Somebody said, and some of y'all have told me, Pastor, I need you to push me. Well, I'm pushing you this morning. It's time for you to get up and take a step into your destiny. It's time for you to stop sitting there with your gift and not using your gift if we're going to come together. I'm almost there. So, what do I do to break these habits? First step, point one, if you're writing, identify what your sins are. First step is to stop tripping over the same weight and confess to God what the weight is. And how many know that if you confess and repent, God will pull you back in? Confess means to speak the same. In other words, it means to call it like God sees it. Lord, it just got quiet. Because nobody wants to call themselves out the way God sees it. Confession accepts the responsibility for our actions and acknowledge what God, watch this, already knows.
Right.
You ain't hiding from me. You can try to hide it from me, but you certainly ain't hiding it from God. Repentance says that we turn our backs on the way we used to be, of sin, and turn instead to God. And the farther we progress with being a spiritual champion, the more sin does not look good. The closer I get to God, the less I want to sin.
Amen. Amen.
I told you I'm teaching this morning. I've already preached all week. The closer I get to God, the more I want to be like Him. The closer I get to God, the more I want to do for Him. The closer I get to God, the more I want to work for Him. The closer I get to God, the more I can't help but I want to come to church. The more I get to God, the closer I want Him to bless me while I'm in church. The more I get closer to God, the more I want to open up and worship Him. It's a shame that people got to stand up here and try to pump you into a praise. God will help me in here. God brought you out of 2018 into 2019. Everybody should still be on their feet giving God the praise. Here you are in church looking like you're born and out of your mind like you ain't supposed to be here. I'm going to command everybody to get up on their feet and give God. Put the phone down, worship. I'm not trying to be on blast. Don't put